Story Chats at Inspi Romance. I'm Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer, and my internet is spotty today.
It is. We're gonna carry on though. Toni Shiloh is also joining us again, which is lovely. We love having you back. Thank you for being with us, Toni.
Thanks for having me again.
So we are talking about food service heroes and heroines today. And Toni, what made you excited about food service folks?
Probably because I had a whole series regarding food service heroes and heroines. So
that would do it. Absolutely. So I think we have a lot of range that we can talk about.
The fun series it is.
Yeah, it is a good series. We could go from chefs, but then there's also servers, there's delivery drivers, there's bussers, there's all kinds of scope, I think, that we can include in our conversation. So hopefully we have more than just the people in the kitchen to talk about, hopefully. Not that there's anything wrong with just talking about chefs, if that's what we end up doing. That's okay too. So before we jump into food recommendations, no, not food recommendations, book recommendations, let's talk a little bit about why we love food service heroes and heroines. What is it about people in the food industry that make them such good romance leads? Narelle, what do you think?
I don't know. I thought about this question. I think that probably for me, because the food service thing is very people orientated. So most people who are doing that work, you're not working behind a computer screen, hiding away in a dark room somewhere. You're out there talking to people, meeting different people. And I think it attracts those personalities as well. People that are curious to know, to have those interesting conversations. And there's a lot of humor and a lot of light moments, and there can be a lot of things go wrong as well with those types of stories. So I just think I think they're just a really fun story. And it's also people that are doing food service are generally very hard workers as well. There's usually a very strong work ethic that goes with that. So you get to sort of see that behind the scenes peek of what's going on in the restaurant or the bakery or the cafe or whatever. And yeah, so I just enjoy them.
Excellent. Toni, what do you think?
I mean, that was an awesome answer. I was actually thinking probably a little bit more basic, that I just feel like food and romance go hand in hand. And there's just something about a heroine or a hero that can cook. There's that domestic feel it brings into it, and has the hopeless romantic thinking of, happily ever afters, and could this be real life, for them as a couple. So that was my first thought.
Love it. Valerie? Maybe Valerie.
I think I'm here.
Yes.
I think it's because they're ordinary people, and kind of like what you said, Toni. We all eat, and most of us have to cook if we want to eat, or somebody in our household does, and so that people who cook and serve are accessible, right? They're everyday people, and so I think that's one reason why I like them.
I think you guys took everything that I could have possibly added, so I'm good with that. I think you're all absolutely spot on. Gold stars all around. All right, so do you think the main roles like chef, baker, restaurant owner make better leads in romance as compared to the server or the table busser, or does it matter? Why or why not? What do you think, Narelle?
I'm always fascinated by the table busser language. We don't call our servers bussers.
Well, servers are different from bussers.
Yeah, I know. We just sort of, I don't know. I always find the language fun. But anyway, I've just completely distracted myself. I don't think it matters to me. I think there's so much scope within what's happening in those small business environments that it doesn't matter to me whether it's the boss or whether it's the person washing the dishes in the kitchen. I mean, I think that all the people that are involved in that type of work are interesting people and have the potential to be great heroes and heroines. So I don't really have a preference.
Toni, what do you think?
She took the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
Apparently
that's okay.
we have all these questions with one answer that we're just going to repeat 3 times, 4 times. Valerie, do you have anything to add?
I think that servers in particular have a greater scope, really, in some ways, because they have more contact with the public. So they can be ignoring the people in that corner table or sitting down every time they get a chance when their boss isn't looking. They've got more to do back and forth with the public, which I think opens things up a little bit.
See, I am a fan of the chef or the baker, the main in the kitchen, because, and I think it probably has to do with the fact that I love watching cooking shows so much. And so there is an element of skill there and temperament. Like there's artistry there. And so you do get some artistic temperament, which makes for drama. They make good dramatic, like you think, like, can you imagine a romance novel with a Gordon Ramsay like chef as the hero? That could be super fun. Possibly also terrifying, depending, but I mean, that's kind of the fun, right? They're dramatic and artistic, and they have these big sharp knives that go 1,000 miles an hour but don't cut their fingers off. So that's cool to me. They make really good heroes and heroines that way. My husband doesn't let me grate cheese because the cheese grater eats my fingers. So I admire people who can wield knives very quickly without losing limbs. I think that's amazing. So
It really is.
yeah, right. Not that there's anything wrong with servers and all the rest of the people involved. They're great, but I will always go for a chef over that if given a choice. Maybe
when I was
snotty.
at school, in high school, my home science teacher, now I'm going, which is the very old language I'm using now, was actually a professional chef. And I used to sit there watching the pracs, fascinated by the way she would cut stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And learned how to cut properly.
Good for you.
From having a
Excellent.
chef. Yeah. That was fun.
All right. Additional comments before we dive into book recommendations. Anybody have something they're burning to add? No, nobody has any burning things to add. That's okay. All right, then let's do book recommendations, because there are a lot, I feel like, of food service books out there, probably because we all love food, and what better way to incorporate that into our readings. So we're never going to hit them all is basically what I'm saying. Everybody probably has a really big list. And if you're listening or watching, you probably have 27 other books that we will not even mention. So leave them in the comments.
Even though we might have read them and enjoyed them.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see what we can get to. Toni, you want to go first? What's your first pick?
Oh, yes. So my first pick is Carla Laureano's Brunch at Bittersweet Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though it's book 2 in the series, yes, I have my own coffee show, but yes, that works too. Even though it's book 2, like it was my favorite.
Yes.
She's a bakery and pastry chef, like desserts, like what could be better than desserts and romance? Like they go hand in hand. And I just love the story behind it. I loved knowing that the author actually tried a lot of recipes when she was writing this series. That's amazing to me as well. So that's definitely my number 1.
That's a great one. That's a fantastic one. Carla gets a lot of airtime on this podcast because her books are so good. So that's a good series. One. Yeah.
That whole series, we could just say, here is the Saturday Night Supper Club books. If you love food, go read all 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we're done with that one.
Narelle, what's your first?
Well, Tony's taken the words out of my mouth this time. This Brunch at Bittersweet Cafe was my first one. And I also like the Saturday Night Supper Club, probably is my second favorite. But make sure you read the Saturday Night Supper Club first, because Melody, who's the main, the heroine in Brunch at Bittersweet Cafe, we see how she'd worked with Rachel at Paisley, and Rachel had been forced out of the business, and she ended up leaving a really good, well-paid pastry chef job because of her loyalty to her friend and not liking the way things had gone down. And what I loved about Brunch at Bittersweet Cafe was the opening scenes where she's doing the overnight shift in the bakery and working really hard. And I think sometimes we forget that people that do those type of baking roles in the chain bakeries and the small businesses, they're starting work often before midnight and are working through, and they're long and grueling hours. So I really liked the realism that was portrayed there. And after he was going, and the hero's a pilot, and that was a really big plus for me. I know it's not about food, and he has a plane that he has with his father. So that was a really, if you like planes and flying, definitely read this one. And so when his Mustang is sort of stuck in the snow on the side of the road because he was silly and didn't take his SUV to the airport, and took the wrong car, he gets stranded and sees the light on the bakery, and she lets him in. And I just love the romance in that as well. And I reread it recently, and I was just hungry all day. So make sure you do not have accessible junk food when you are reading this book, because you will get hungry. That's my first one. I've just added on to Tony's start.
Excellent. Valerie, what's your first one?
That was an interesting warning, Narelle. The first one that came to mind is Jan Thompson's book, Call for You, because not only is there a chef, there's two chefs. And they were in competition together in high school, and she won and he didn't, and he went off to cook in the cruise line industry, which is also very interesting. And she took over her family restaurant, which is open 24/7 in Savannah, which I just can't even imagine at 24/7. Mind you, I live in rural small town, and nobody would dream of being open 24 hours a day. But it was fun because they didn't get along, and because he's eating there with his mom, and service is really, really terrible, and he knows that that's not Piper's normal thing. And then he finds out that two of her chefs eloped together and are gone. So like she's all of a sudden down two chefs out of her rotation. And so she begs him to help, and he does against his better judgment. And
the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
Very
tasty, very tasty history.
I don't think I've read that one. How did I miss that one?
I don't know.
I don't either. That sounds right up my alley. All right. See, we even find.
And not only that, but the heroine is deaf. So there's that added little interesting thing in that one as well.
Cool. That's very cool. All right. So my first was Secrets of the Heart by Lee Tobin McClain. And that is honestly her whole Romance from the Heart series, which was part of Arcadia Valley. Were chef owners of a Mexican restaurant, which pretty much the way to my heart is through Mexican food or Tex-Mex. That's like, if you bring me queso and guacamole, if it's not too illegal, I will do it for you. So because
that's quite a caveat there.
Yeah. I'm not ruling out like little illegal things, but big illegal things are off the table. But like, depending on the guacamole, we could talk. So just all the Mexican food, I'm kidding, by the way, mostly, but I do love guacamole. So, all the Mexican food, and then she sort of modernizes it a little bit and makes it more farm to table, which just makes it sound even more amazing. And then you throw in there like just because they are Latin in origin as well, you've got the fiery tempers and just the over the top emotions and drama that go.
And the grandmother, right?
And the whole thing is just fantastic. And it's sort of a family saga with the restaurant, and I just love it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, you will also, again, still be hungry all the time. So have some chips nearby. Possibly
That was on my
guacamole.
list as well.
Or possibly chips and guacamole.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Oh, I love guacamole. Does anyone not like guacamole?
What?
Does anyone here not like guacamole? Are we
No,
all
it's
in
the
favor?
best.
I hope not. Yeah. I don't
Okay.
understand people who don't like guacamole. I don't. I'll eat your guacamole for you, but I won't understand you while I'm doing it. So
Well, I guess we'll find out in comments to this
Right.
episode, right? Whether people are on board or not with
Yeah.
guac.
yeah.
I have a family member with an allergy to banana and avocado, and if they eat guacamole, they'll start with the lips swell, and yeah,
That's sad.
That's awful.
Yes,
Sad.
it
My
is very
favorite,
sad.
like if you've seen the second Despicable Me movie where he has at the party with the big hat with
Yeah.
guacamole, like with that, I want one of those, like the big chip hat just filled with guacamole. That sounds amazing to me. Valerie's like, where did we go wrong? We're totally off the rails here.
We're talking food. We're all good.
We are.
All right,
We are.
next book, Toni. What's your next book?
It's funny, while everyone said theirs, my brain kept thinking of more and more books. I was like, ooh, this one, ooh, that one.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of frozen, but I'll stick with my list just in case. I was going to pick Becky Wade's Sweet on You because chocolate. She's a chocolatier, and how can you not like chocolate? Like, it's one of
Fair.
those things. And I love the fact that it was friends to more. There's like this scene where it like finally hits her that just has me like grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, you were slow, but now that you got it, like I'm all here for the swooning.
That's
Nice.
cool. Very good. Narelle?
What will I jump to? So I've been reading a lot of Tari Farris's series recently. I just if you go back to September on the blog, I did a blog post on her, overviewed her series of all the romances in it. And so the one that I'm going to talk about for this one is You Belong With Me, which is the first book in her Restoring Heritage series. And with her, one of the things I loved about these books is there was a main romance and then there was a romantic subplot. And the romantic subplots were super fun. And this one is Beth Cope. It's a love triangle. So yes, and it's really fun with this one. So my favorite character in the series is unfortunately the girl that misses out. But the girl that does win the guy is a chef in the kitchen of the diner. And so the setup for this particular romance is that it's his aunt and uncle who own this diner, and they aren't able to be there and they have to go away. So he takes over managing the diner, and of course it's his ex who went to Paris after he ditched her, who's come back as a chef and is in the kitchen. So I really like that the romance dynamics in the kitchen. So you've got the boss and the chef who have to navigate the fact that he suddenly has a fiance that she's come back to. So that was super fun. So I really like when the internal employee-employer dynamics, which in real life could be incredibly problematic because of the way all our laws are in workplaces. In fiction, that doesn't matter. You can just have fun.
You can have it be a problem if it suits the plot. And if
Right.
not,
Yes.
you can ignore it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Valerie, what's yours?
Well, it seems like we should talk about Elizabeth Maddrey's book, Splash of Substance. And Paige is probably the first book of yours that I read, Beth. And Paige is a caterer in Washington, D.C., and she is trying to lean her business over towards like a farm to table thing. And so she is catering a political event for Jackson, who's an aide. And there's just a lot of conflict there. Opposites attract, but not without a whole lot of that. So that one was fun. And because I enjoy the whole farm to table thing in real life as well as in stories, I really enjoyed that particular book. And then we get to visit her restaurant and some of the other stories as well, when she has that wide open. So good times.
Excellent.
And how did I miss putting that on my list? Sorry, I'm going to do
Okay.
this probably the whole episode. How did I forget that one?
Because we could have picked from like, I don't know, 400 books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There
And
were
we can only
very-
talk about like 10.
yeah,
Yeah.
so many choices. So my next one actually is Tacos for Two by Betsy St. Amant, which
Mhm.
comes out soon, but not yet. It's not out yet, so haha. It's fun to read arcs sometimes. This was
I'm
a
still
really
waiting on
fun
mine.
one. It's taco trucks, dueling taco trucks with a You've Got Mail nod. Well, fairly large nod to You've Got Mail, which makes it fun. And it just, I mean, well, like I've got now two Tex-Mex / Mexican. I like Tex-Mex / Mexican food a lot. It is my love language. So so tacos.
So I want to know if Betsy St. Amant's book had that big hat with the guacamole around the
No,
outside.
she missed that
so she
opportunity to
failed.
have.
She
Yeah,
failed.
she did. She
Okay.
failed on the chip guac hat thing. So
It's really sad.
it is super sad. Super
I
sad.
love that book, but I read it and I did not get the You Got Mail thing until someone told me about it.
Oh, really?
Is that interesting? No, maybe I wasn't thinking or looking for it, but I'm like, oh, that was so much in the story, but I just did not see it when I was reading it. So there you go.
Okay. All right. So if you're not a You've Got Mail fan, read the book anyway because you might miss
Yes.
it. So
But you'll love
Because
the
it's a
book. You
good
don't have
story
to.
either way.
it
Yes,
is.
you
It's a
don't-
super cute story.
Yeah.
All
You
right,
don't need
Toni,
to
do you
love You've
have?
Got Mail to enjoy
We've
this
got
one.
time to squeeze 3 in. Squeeze another one in, Toni. What you got?
Okay, so I went with the series this time, even though I only have the one book to show. It's Hilary Manton Lodge's Two Blue Doors series. It's so good. Like all of the books. I'm not generally a love triangle person. They make me too anxious because what if the author picks the wrong person? So it's very real anxiety for me. So I usually steer clear of them. But again, I don't read blurbs. So, sometimes I get tricked into reading them anyways. So this romance goes over 3 books. And you're following the heroine who's a restaurant owner and her quest of finding love, but also to get her restaurant open, which, if I remember correctly, she names the Two Blue Doors. So it's a really good book. There's trip to Italy in there because Italian food should be like everyone's second under Mexican food, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was there for the food, the romance, even the love triangle, because it was worth it in the end.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Narelle, you got a third that you can squeak in?
Well, I'm going to mention I'm going to mention 2. I'm just going to quickly mention the Baxter Family Bakery series, Elizabeth.
You're such a rebel.
Arcadia Valley. I am. I love that book. And the one thing that I really liked, and I mean, Donuts and Daydreams was the 3rd book, which is where Gloria has her romance. But I love the setup in the earlier books where she'd come into the bakery and he'd go and serve her. And it was that really sort of cute, we're interested in each other. And I think that really sums up one of the reasons I like food service books is you've got those interesting dynamics where people can sort of come in every day and sort of become friends through that shared location. And I think particularly in lockdown, I really miss being able to just go into a cafe and talk to people.
Sure.
Like something you took for granted is now something that's a very special event when we finally reopen. Yeah, that's the first one. The second one is Toni Shiloh's Maple Run series.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here thinking, which one is it that I like the best? And that's so hard in a series. But I'll talk about Riskng Love, where Nikki's the hostess at the diner at the Maple Pit. Yeah. So, and with Shorty, I thought that was a really fun story. And a lot of the scenes in the story sort of tie into what's happening at the Maple Pit. Yeah. And it's just so fun.
It was a fun series.
It's a
I don't
great
remember each story separately, but I do remember having a happy glow reading through them. So,
and the maple themed food, like that's something very different for me. I don't usually eat maple syrup even. I'm not probably big on maple. So I found that learning about food that I don't normally eat fascinating as well. So I enjoyed that.
I stayed hungry the entire time I wrote that series.
I
I'm
believe
not
it.
surprised.
I believe it.
I wasn't going to
yeah.
ask you how many kilos your pounds you put on. You must be, unless you were writing on like a treadmill.
Right. That's when you need a walking desk for sure.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that does seem like a bit of a rude question.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the danger for authors, isn't it? I mean, if we sit here and write all these foodie books, then we're going to be exercising the same length of time we're writing.
All right, Valerie, what you got?
What have I got? Let's see. I think I'm going to have to go with one of mine. I'm going to go with Lavished with Lavendar. And speaking of Italian chefs, we've got one there. His name is Toni. The story takes place about a good chunk in his restaurant, Antonio's, which he's just getting up off the ground, but it also revolves around the fact that he lives, he's just come back to the city and he's living with his grandmother who's had a fall, and they have to hire a caregiver, and the caregiver can't cook at all, and he can't do the care because he's so busy with his restaurant. Yeah. So we've got two people who, for the first time that I wrote, two people with this very same personality traits who are just like every time, and she can't even boil water without burning it. So it was a lot of fun to have that juxtaposition in there as well. And then, yeah, all the delicious Italian food that I got to write about was fun.
It was a good one. I will scratch that one off my list. Actually, I was just planning on mentioning both your Farm Fresh and your Urban Farm Fresh series, because you can't really turn a page in almost any of the books without hitting something tasty. So
yes.
Pretty much.
Food.
Yeah.
I love language.
Yeah. So instead, I will just squeak in Her Brother's Best Friend by Hannah Jo Abbott, where Emily is a chef for her career. And so she's also the go-to cook for the friends and family. And what I really thought was fun in the course of the book is she discovers that she is celiac. She has a celiac disease. So she, as a chef, that's kind of a disaster to have to now avoid all things gluten. And so that part of her journey is really interesting. And I thought it was really well done, which Hannah, I know, has one of her kids is celiac. So it's a personal thing that she knows a lot about. So I'm sure that factored into being able to do it so well. But I just thought it was an interesting twist, because there's a whole element of what do you do when your career, kind of gets tipped sideways by a big thing like that, and how does that impact everything else that's going on in your life?
That's a great twist, I think, to a restaurateur kind of story, for sure.
I mean, it'd be like if Tony's little restaurant, now you're allergic to maple. Like, I know, right? What are you gonna do?
Cry.
Yeah, cry, right? It would be bad. Cry and probably have to move to a whole new town. Right?
Very, very sad existence.
Yeah.
Sounds like another future topic.
Yeah.
Books with those twists.
Oh yeah. That would be fun. Big twists. All right.
Oh, but then we've got too many spoilers, maybe.
Yeah, I was just thinking part of the problem is some of those twists come at the end, and they're like the little dig there at the end. So it's like Grand Gestures, where we ruined a whole bunch of books for people.
We'll have to look for some though, that where the twist is built in early on.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to do another Grand Gestures episode. I was at the end of that one, I'm like, wow, I hope everybody has read all of these books already, because we just ruined a whole bunch of books for a whole bunch of people.
Spoiler alert.
Oops.
Stamp that across the whole episode.
Right. Yeah. So, oh my goodness. All right. We are now overtime, so that's exciting. So that's because Toni's fun to talk with. Thank you, Toni, for joining us. Tell us what you're up to book-wise, where we can find you in your books, that sort of thing.
Sure. I'm coming off a bunch of deadlines, so I can breathe a little easily. Turned in a manuscript to Bethany House and Love Inspired. And you can find me on ToniShiloh.com, and it has all my social media links because they don't all match. Sorry.
That's okay. It's excellent. All right, great. If you have comments, tell us what books we missed. We know we missed them. They probably are on our list. We just, we're not doing a 3-hour podcast. It's 30 minutes. So let us know what we missed or which ones we hit that you haven't read yet. And do that in a comment on YouTube or on the Story Chats Facebook page, either one. And thank you so much for joining us at Story Chats. Let us, I already said, let us know your thoughts. So you can find everything you need to know about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe so you never miss an episode. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. So don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.